A silent network of colossal stones spans our planet. From the deserts of Egypt to the high mountains of Peru, these megalithic structures whisper a secret history we are only beginning to hear. They challenge the very foundations of what we believe about our ancient past. Why do identical architectural styles and precise astronomical alignments appear on continents separated by vast oceans? By the end of this exploration, you will see the undeniable evidence for a forgotten global civilization. We will uncover how cultures supposedly isolated from one another shared a common, advanced knowledge of engineering and the stars. What does this hidden chapter of human connection reveal about who we truly are? These massive stone constructions form a global tapestry of ancient genius. They are known as megaliths, and they represent the first undeniable thread in our investigation. We are not looking at simple piles of rock. These are intentional structures, built to a scale and precision that still challenges our understanding. Across the world, we find dolmens, which are massive stone tables, solitary standing stones called menhirs, and Cyclopean walls made of giant, interlocking blocks. The term megalithic comes from ancient Greek words for large stone, yet that simple definition fails to capture their true grandeur and profound mystery. What is so baffling is how these structures appear in cultures supposedly separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, yet they share uncanny similarities. Consider the towering trilithons of Stonehenge in England, those iconic arches formed by two vertical stones capped by a horizontal lintel. Now, travel across the world to the high Andes of Peru, to the fortress of Sacsayhuamán. Here you will find walls constructed from polygonal stones, each block weighing many tons, fitted together so perfectly that you cannot slip a piece of paper between them. This is not simple stacking. This is a sophisticated architectural language, one that seems to transcend geography and time itself. What common human impulse drove cultures from every corner of the globe to undertake such backbreaking, monumental work? What shared knowledge of mathematics, engineering, and astronomy was required to execute these projects on a continental scale? To see these sites as isolated wonders is to miss the larger picture entirely. Understanding the sheer, overwhelming scope of this phenomenon is the first step in seeing the hidden network it implies, forcing us to question the very timeline of human technological development. This single site in Turkey shatters the accepted timeline of human history. Göbekli Tepe is a sprawling complex of massive, T-shaped stone pillars arranged in great circles, and it is staggeringly old. It was constructed around 11,500 years ago, a date that places it 6,000 years before Stonehenge and a full 7 millennia before the Great Pyramid of Giza. What you find here are not crude, primitive structures. The pillars are immense, some weighing over 20 tons, and they are covered in exquisite, finely carved reliefs of animals like foxes, scorpions, and vultures. This was a place of profound ritual and symbolism, a cathedral built at the very end of the last ice age. The true enigma lies not just in its age, but in its builders. Mainstream archaeology tells us that the people who erected Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers, nomadic bands who had not yet invented agriculture or settled into permanent villages. So how do we explain this? How could small, mobile groups of people focused on daily survival possibly conceive of such a project, let alone execute it with such astonishing precision? The stones are aligned with celestial events, suggesting a deep, codified knowledge of astronomy. The labor required to quarry, transport, and erect these monoliths points to a sophisticated level of social organization. the very thing we were taught emerged only after farming was invented. Göbekli Tepe turns this linear story on its head. It suggests that complex society, monument building, and advanced abstract thought may have come first, and that agriculture was perhaps a consequence of the need to feed the builders of such temples, not the other way around. This site stands as a silent, defiant witness to a forgotten epoch, a lost chapter of human achievement. It forces a deeply unsettling question. If this level of knowledge and coordination existed so long ago, what else were these ancient people capable of? Göbekli Tepe feels less like a solitary anomaly and more like a single, surviving piece of a vast global puzzle, a cornerstone of a network whose full extent we are only beginning to glimpse. The stones themselves speak a language of the stars. This astronomical alignment is the second powerful thread connecting these far-flung sites, revealing a shared celestial knowledge that defies the idea of isolated development. Look at the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its base is aligned to the four cardinal directions with an accuracy of within 1/15 of a single degree, an engineering feat that would challenge modern surveyors even with advanced tools. This is not a rough approximation. It is a deliberate, precise orientation to true north, a connection to the cosmic order carved in millions of tons of limestone and granite. Now journey to the other side of the world, to the mountaintop sanctuary of Machu Picchu. Here, the Intihuatana stone, often called the hitching post of the sun, stands as a masterpiece of astronomical observation. During the equinoxes, the sun sits directly atop the pillar, casting no shadow at all. It is a perfect solar clock, a device for marking the sun's passage and the changing of the seasons with breathtaking exactitude. From the sun dagger petroglyphs in the American Southwest that mark solstices to the star-aligned temples of ancient Cambodia, the pattern is undeniable and global. These builders were not just looking at the sky, they were mapping it, using the immutable movements of celestial bodies as the foundation for their most sacred and permanent structures. How could cultures separated by oceans and millennia develop such a uniformly sophisticated understanding of the cosmos? The simplest explanation is that they were not working in isolation. The consistent application of this knowledge points toward a common source, a foundational school of thought that understood the Earth's place in the heavens. This was not just about tracking time for planting crops. This level of precision hints at a grander purpose, perhaps even for transoceanic navigation, using the stars as a guide across the open seas. The heavens were their common textbook, and these megalithic structures were their permanent, shared notes. But if they shared knowledge of the stars, what other secrets did they hold in common? The true shockwave comes when we examine the tools they supposedly used to achieve these impossible feats. These stone walls are architectural impossibilities. The technique is known as polygonal masonry, and it represents one of the most profound mysteries in the ancient world. We are not looking at simple, rectangular blocks stacked one on top of another. These stones are cut into complex, irregular shapes, like a gigantic, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Each piece, often weighing dozens of tons, is uniquely shaped to interlock perfectly with all of its neighbors. The result is a wall so seamless, so impossibly tight, that you cannot slip a razor blade or even a single piece of paper into the joints. This is not merely a style. It is a pinnacle of engineering that modern masons struggle to replicate even with computer-guided machinery. And the most baffling part is that this exact same technique appears on continents that were supposedly unknown to each other. In Egypt, deep within the foundations of the mysterious Osireion at Abydos, you find these Cyclopean walls of fitted stone, defying the desert sands for millennia. Then, thousands of miles across the Atlantic and high in the Peruvian Andes, the fortress of Ollantaytambo displays the very same feat. Here, colossal pink porphyry blocks are fitted together with that same breathtaking precision, forming walls that have withstood countless earthquakes. The mystery deepens further when we look to the sea off the coast of Japan, where the submerged Yonaguni Monument, with its massive, terraced stone formations, shows what many argue are the hallmarks of this same polygonal craft, now resting on the ocean floor. The logistical and mathematical knowledge required for this is immense. It is not just about cutting stone. It demands an advanced understanding of geometry, stress distribution, and material science. How do you carve a 20-ton stone into a complex polygon with multiple angles, and then know exactly how it will fit with the stones above, below, and beside it, all without the use of mortar? To suggest that cultures in Egypt, Peru, and Japan independently stumbled upon this identical, hyper-sophisticated solution to construction stretches credibility to its breaking point. It is like three different people in three different countries, with no contact, independently inventing the exact same complex computer code. The existence of this technique is a powerful argument for a shared, advanced school of stonemasonry, a common architectural tradition that once spanned the globe. This was not a simple idea that slowly spread. It was a fully formed, high-level technology. What could possibly explain such a uniform, global signature, and what does it tell us about the true architects of our distant past? The sheer scale of Baalbek redefines the possible. In Lebanon, the ruins of a Roman temple rest upon a foundation so colossal, so incomprehensibly massive, that it makes the structures above seem almost like an afterthought. This is the trilithon, a platform of 3 limestone blocks, each one estimated to weigh over 800 tons. To put that into perspective, that is the weight of 2 fully loaded jumbo jets for a single stone. They are fitted together with a precision that would be remarkable for blocks of a manageable size, but for monoliths of this magnitude, it is virtually inexplicable. How do you move an 800-ton block from a quarry, transport it over a mile, and then hoist it into place, aligning it perfectly with its neighbors, all without modern machinery? The Romans who built the temples on top were master engineers, but even their own records contain no explanation for how they could have achieved this. The mystery only deepens in the nearby quarry where the true monster lies. Known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, this partially carved megalith is still attached to the bedrock. It is the largest known stone ever carved by human hands, weighing an almost unimaginable 1,600 tons. It was cut, shaped, and then simply left. Was it simply too heavy, even for them? The existence of this stone proves the intent to build on a scale that dwarfs even the greatest pyramids. This was not just a temple foundation. This feels like the bedrock of something else entirely, a landing pad for giants or a platform for a technology we have long forgotten. The logistics involved hint at a lost science of mass and movement, a knowledge that allowed its possessors to treat 1,000-ton stones like mere building blocks. When you stand before these stones, the official narratives of history begin to feel fragile. This is not merely an architectural style shared across continents, like the polygonal walls we see in Peru. This is a demonstration of raw, earth-shaking power, a level of mega-engineering that suggests its creators operated on a completely different plane of capability. If such a civilization could move mountains, what other impossible feats were they capable of? And what catastrophic event could have erased them so completely from our memory? Their silent gaze holds a question for the ages. The monolithic Moai statues of Easter Island stand with their backs to the endless Pacific, their solemn faces looking inward across the grassy landscape. For generations, we were told a story of an isolated people, a Polynesian society that developed in complete solitude, eventually collapsing under the weight of its own ambition. Yet, when you look closer, this story of isolation begins to crumble. These are not simple carvings. Each colossal head is in fact a full-bodied statue, buried deep in the earth, some standing over 30 feet tall and weighing up to 80 tons. They were carved from compressed volcanic tuff in a quarry, then somehow transported miles across the island's rugged terrain to be erected on massive stone platforms called ahu. This entire process, from quarrying to transportation to precise placement, is a signature megalithic undertaking. It echoes the same immense logistical challenges we see at Göbekli Tepe and Baalbek, a puzzle of moving mountains with unknown tools. The island's extreme isolation makes this feat not less impressive but far more mysterious. How could a population, estimated to have been only in the thousands, independently develop the complex engineering and social organization required for such a project? The answer may be that they did not have to. The Moai and their ahu platforms are not unique in concept. They share a profound spiritual and architectural kinship with the massive stone platforms of Peru, the great statues of the ancient Americas, and the menhir traditions of Europe. It is the same human impulse to carve the landscape on a grand scale, to connect the earth with the heavens. This connection deepens with the discovery of the island's petroglyphs and its undeciphered Rongorongo script, a system of glyphs that points to a complex cosmology. This was not a primitive culture. It was a sophisticated one with a written language and a detailed understanding of astronomy, as many ahu are aligned with solstices and other celestial events. The most compelling possibility is that Easter Island was never truly isolated. It was a remote outpost. Imagine the Pacific Ocean not as an impenetrable barrier, but as a vast, navigable highway. The Polynesians were the greatest open ocean voyagers in human history, using their profound knowledge of stars, winds, and currents to settle islands across thousands of miles of open water. What if their voyages connected them to something much older? The placement of Easter Island, one of the most remote places on Earth, begins to make a different kind of sense. It stops looking like a lonely cradle of civilization and starts to feel like a waypoint, a terminal in a global network. The Moai were not a product of isolation, but a declaration of connection, a final, enduring message from a seafaring people who were part of a forgotten world, a world that once spoke the common language of stone. Beneath the waves off Japan's coast, a stone labyrinth waits in the silence. The Yonaguni Monument rises from the seafloor, a colossal structure of terraced platforms, sharp right angles, and staircases that ascend into nothingness. Its walls are scarred with what appear to be carved channels and perfect circular depressions, all arranged with a geometric repetition that screams of intelligent design. The official geological explanation calls it a natural formation, a wonder of sandstone fracturing, but to stand before its monolithic presence is to feel a profound dissonance. Nature creates in curves and chaos, not in perfect 90-degree angles and repeating symmetrical tiers. This is not a random shape, it is architecture. If this structure is indeed the work of human hands, its scale is almost beyond comprehension, a megalithic complex that would dwarf many of its terrestrial counterparts. Dating it presents the ultimate challenge, for its construction would have only been possible when sea levels were dramatically lower, pushing its potential origin back to a time around 10,000 years ago, an era that echoes the antiquity of Göbekli Tepe. This single, submerged site does not just challenge the story of Japan's isolated prehistory, it shatters it. Suddenly, the scattered islands of the Pacific are no longer isolated dots on a map, but potential waypoints in a forgotten network. The stylistic echoes are too powerful to ignore. The massive, stepped pyramids of Gunung Padang in Indonesia, the colossal stone faces of Nan Madol in Micronesia, even the foundational polygonal styles of Peru, all seem to whisper the same architectural language now spoken by Yonaguni. This is no longer a question of independent invention. This is the signature of a shared blueprint. Could this sunken complex be a lone survivor from a pan-Pacific civilization, a culture of master mariners and masons whose world was ultimately consumed by the rising seas? The Pandora's box of possibilities it opens forces us to reconsider everything. If they could traverse the vast Pacific, what stopped them from reaching the Americas? The Yonaguni Monument is more than a mystery. It is a sunken keystone, a piece of evidence that could connect entire continents, and its silent, watery existence begs the most profound question of all. How much of human history is currently lying at the bottom of the ocean, waiting for us to rediscover it? Thousands of silent sentinels stand in perfect rows across the French countryside. The Karnak alignments in Brittany are a breathtaking spectacle, a forest of stone erected by a forgotten hand. Nearly 3,000 individual menhirs stretch for over 4 kilometers, arranged with geometric precision into long, parallel lines that march across the landscape. Local legends speak of a Roman legion petrified by a sorcerer, a poetic explanation for an otherwise inexplicable sight. But the truth behind these stones is far more profound than any myth. Their construction represents a staggering feat of social organization, demanding a society with a unified vision, immense manpower, and the ability to sustain a project that must have taken generations to complete. This was not a random act of piling rocks. It was a deliberate, continent-scale undertaking. How does this massive European complex fit into the global pattern we have been tracing? The methodology is eerily familiar. The site selection on a specific geological formation, the quarrying of colossal granite blocks, and the precise, intentional alignment of each row all echo the same underlying principles we see at Göbekli Tepe and in the Andes. Some researchers propose the rows functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, their sight lines marking the solstice sun and the movements of the moon. Others suggest they were part of a vast terrestrial energy grid, with the stones acting as conduits for the Earth's own telluric currents. While the exact purpose remains debated, the implication is clear. The builders of Karnak were operating from a shared cosmological blueprint, one that viewed the Earth and the heavens as an interconnected whole. This was not a local superstition. It was a sophisticated understanding of cosmic principles, a science of alignment that appears to have been practiced from the shores of Europe to the mountains of Peru. The stones of Karnak are not an isolated mystery. They are a European chapter in a global text, written in a language of stone and stars that we are only now learning to read. If this single, sprawling site represents a common knowledge, then what other grand designs, now lost to time, once connected these distant corners of the ancient world? Deep within the sands of Abydos, a structure defies all expectations of ancient Egypt. The Osireion, a sunken temple complex, is built from colossal blocks of red granite, each one weighing dozens of tons and fitted together in that same unmistakable polygonal style we see across the world. Stylistically, it is an alien presence among the more refined, later Egyptian temples that surround it. Many archaeologists quietly admit it feels far older, a relic from a different age entirely. Its core design is a profound mystery, a central platform or island surrounded by a channel of water, almost like a moat, with 10 enormous pillars holding up what would have been a massive roof. This was not a temple for the living in any ordinary sense. It was a symbolic tomb, a place dedicated to Osiris, the god of the underworld and resurrection, and it was believed to be the very spot where the world began. Now hold that image in your mind and travel with me across an entire ocean to the high Andes of Peru. Here, in the heart of Cusco, stood the Coricancha, the golden temple that was the spiritual center of the Inca Empire. Its most sacred inner sanctuary was not a simple room. It was a chamber featuring a central platform, surrounded by a channel of flowing water, with meticulously placed niches and pillars. The Inca themselves said they built upon foundations laid by a far older, godlike people, and they revered this spot as the navel of the world, the very place of primordial creation. The architectural resonance is stunning. Two structures on opposite sides of the globe, both using Cyclopean masonry, both built around the exact same core design of a central island surrounded by a water channel, and both hailed as the spiritual birthplace of their respective worlds. This is not a vague similarity in style, like two cultures both building pyramids. This is a specific, complex architectural blueprint being replicated. How can we possibly attribute this to coincidence? The chance that two cultures, completely isolated from one another, would independently invent not only the same impossibly advanced stone fitting technique, but also the same intricate, symbolic layout for their most sacred sites is vanishingly small. This feels less like parallel development and more like the work of a single school of master builders, a guild that encoded its most profound knowledge of sacred geometry and cosmic origins into stone, leaving its signature on two continents. The Osireion and the Coricancha stand as silent, enduring mirrors of one another, reflecting a design philosophy that once spanned the earth. If this is the echo of a shared heritage, what other blueprints are waiting to be recognized? The city of Cusco itself was carved from a living mountain. High in the Peruvian Andes, the ancient Inca capital was not merely built upon the land, but woven into its very fabric, with its central fortress of Sacsayhuamán forming the fierce stone head of a giant puma whose body was the city itself. These are not simple walls, they are colossal, zigzagging ramparts assembled from stones so immense that their scale defies belief, with some individual blocks weighing nearly 200 tons. Each one is a unique, polygonal masterpiece, cut and shaped to interlock with its neighbors in a three-dimensional puzzle of breathtaking complexity. This is the same dry stone technique we have seen across the world, a technology that uses gravity and geometry as its only mortar, creating structures of incredible strength. The proof of its genius is written in the seismic history of the Andes. While modern concrete buildings in the region crack and crumble, these ancient walls have withstood countless powerful earthquakes, their interlocking stones simply shifting and then settling back into perfect alignment, a dynamic dance that modern engineering struggles to replicate. The Inca themselves were unequivocal about their origins. They did not claim to have built these foundational wonders. They insisted they were inheritors, that the Cyclopean stonework of Sacsayhuamán and the sacred Coricancha were the works of a far older, vastly more advanced people, a civilization lost to the mists of time. This is the same story we hear echoed at every major megalithic site, from the gods who raised the pyramids of Egypt to the giants who moved the stones of Baalbek. It is a global refrain, a persistent whisper from later cultures that they were merely occupying the ruins of a world they could no longer comprehend. The builders of this original Cusco possessed more than just advanced stonemasonry. They demonstrated a profound understanding of their environment, seamlessly integrating their architecture with the natural bedrock, channeling water through stone, and aligning their structures with celestial bodies. This was a holistic science, one that viewed engineering, astronomy, and the Earth itself as a single, interconnected system. Was this city just a local marvel, or was it a crucial nexus in a far larger network? The identical building principles, the shared mythological narratives, and the sheer, undeniable technical prowess all point toward a connection that transcends the South American continent. The stones of Cusco are not just a local wonder, they are a silent testament to a lost engineering paradigm, a chapter in a global instruction manual we are only now beginning to decipher. This same geometric obsession rises from the earth in a form more universal than any other, the pyramid. They stand as silent, geometric mountains on nearly every continent, from the stepped ziggurats of ancient Mesopotamia to the smooth, piercing peaks of Egypt and the jungle-shrouded temples of Mesoamerica. On the surface, their stated purposes differed. Some were tombs for god-kings, others were platforms for priests to commune with the heavens, and many served as precise astronomical observatories. Yet beneath these cultural variations lies a stunning consistency, a shared architectural DNA that binds them together across impossible distances. The builders of these structures repeatedly chose the same stable, powerful form, and frequently aligned their bases to the four cardinal directions with an accuracy that still inspires awe. This is not a vague resemblance, it is a precise mathematical echo. Consider the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico. Its base perimeter is almost exactly 4 times its height. Now look at the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Its base perimeter is also precisely 4 times its height, a ratio of 2 pi, reflecting a profound understanding of advanced geometry. How can we explain two cultures, separated by a vast ocean and thousands of years, independently arriving at the same complex mathematical relationship for their most sacred structures? The simplest answer is that they did not invent it independently. This recurrence of form and formula is one of the most compelling arguments for a shared, ancient knowledge base, a foundational school of sacred geometry that was applied globally. The pyramid was not just a convenient shape, it appears to have been a fundamental archetype, a technological and spiritual tool. Were these structures part of a coordinated, global project? Could their placement have been intentional, designed to harness the Earth's own telluric energies or to act as a network of powerful navigational beacons, visible for miles and aligned with the stars above? Their pervasive presence suggests they were more than local monuments. They were the cornerstones in the blueprint of a civilization that once saw the entire planet as its canvas, a unified vision carved in stone and scale. The stones of Puma Punku lie scattered like pieces from a celestial machine. In the high Bolivian Altiplano, this field of ruins presents a puzzle that pushes the boundaries of ancient technology. We are not looking at rough-hewn monoliths. These are precision-crafted components, carved from andesite and diorite, two of the hardest stones on the planet. Working such materials requires more than simple copper chisels. It demands tools with industrial-grade strength, the kind we achieve today with diamond-tipped saws and laser cutters. Yet here, in a site officially attributed to the Tiwanaku culture over 1,000 years ago, we find evidence of exactly that. The most famous pieces are the so-called H-blocks. These are not simple slabs, they are complex geometric forms with razor-sharp, perfectly straight edges and smooth, flat surfaces that meet at flawless 90-degree angles. Many feature identically spaced, perfectly cylindrical holes drilled into them, as if designed to accept metal clamps or pins. They look less like ritual art and more like prefabricated parts, engineered to interlock with other components in a structure we can no longer envision. This is not architecture as we typically understand it. It is engineering on a level that feels anachronistic, a technology that seems to have no logical place in the accepted timeline of this region. How could a pre-industrial society achieve such a feat? the sheer precision implies a profound, codified knowledge of geometry and material science. It suggests the use of machine tools for cutting and drilling, a concept that should not exist here. The original purpose of this structure is lost to us, its grand design now a chaotic jumble of broken components, possibly flung apart by a cataclysmic event. The Tiwanaku people who later occupied the area likely found these ruins just as we do, a legacy of a much older, vastly more sophisticated civilization. The evidence lies in the stone itself, a level of technical prowess that was clearly not invented but inherited and then ultimately lost. Puma Punku stands as a silent, shattered blueprint, a ghost of a global industry whose tools and techniques have vanished from history. A shared symbolic language is etched into the very stones of these ancient sites. Beyond the colossal architecture, a deeper connection emerges, one written in a universal vocabulary of myth and iconography. The serpent or dragon is perhaps the most pervasive of these symbols. In Mesoamerica, the plumed serpent god Quetzalcoatl was a bringer of wisdom and civilization. Across the Pacific, the Naga spirits of Southeast Asia are depicted as powerful, divine serpents guarding sacred knowledge and waterways. And in ancient Egypt, the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, symbolized the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This is not a vague resemblance. It is the same core concept, the serpent as a representation of cosmic energy, primordial wisdom, and the life force of the earth itself, appearing in cultures that should have had no contact. Then we have the spiral, a motif of equal power and mystery. At the ancient mound of Newgrange in Ireland, a site older than the pyramids, the entrance stone is covered in intricate, deeply carved spirals, aligned to capture the rising sun of the winter solstice. Thousands of miles away, the same spiral patterns adorn the ritual pottery of the Yongshao culture in ancient China. In both places, the spiral is understood to represent the cycles of life, death, and regeneration, the turning of the stars, and the flow of cosmic energy. Sun disks and solar crosses form the third pillar of this universal language. From the winged sun disk of Horus in Egypt to the intricate golden sun disks of the Incas and the solar crosses found in European megalithic art, the sun was universally venerated not just as a god, but as a central, organizing principle of the cosmos. How can we explain this? The chance that three distinct, complex symbols, each laden with profound philosophical meaning, would independently emerge on every continent is astronomically low. This is not mere coincidence. It is the cultural fingerprint of a shared origin. These symbols feel like the scattered pages of a single, global mythos, a foundational story about the nature of reality that was carried across the world. Did a single, primordial civilization disseminate this symbolic language, which was then adapted and reinterpreted by every successor culture that came after? The architecture proves they shared a common engineering manual. These symbols suggest they also shared the same spiritual and cosmological textbook, a unified vision of the universe that once connected humanity across vast and empty seas. These myths are not just isolated bedtime stories. They form a global chorus, a collective memory of a time before our time. From the icy north to the deepest jungles, our ancestors passed down eerily similar tales of a golden age, an epoch when gods walked among men. The Sumerians, in some of the oldest writings we possess, meticulously recorded the deeds of the Anunnaki, powerful beings who descended from the heavens to give humanity the gifts of agriculture, law, and civilization. Far to the east, the ancient Hindu epics of the Ramayana and Mahabharata describe in stunning detail flying machines called vimanas, weapons of immense power that could level cities, and a society of incredible technological and spiritual advancement. The Greeks gave this lost world a name that has echoed through the centuries: Atlantis, a mighty island empire that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night. Even in the remote Americas, indigenous traditions speak of wise, bearded strangers, like the god Viracocha in the Andes or Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica, who appeared after a great flood to teach architecture, agriculture, and astronomy before departing across the sea. When you lay these stories side by side, the pattern is undeniable. They all describe a founding civilization, a period of unparalleled knowledge and global connection, followed by a devastating cataclysm, usually involving water and earth-shattering upheaval. The details are cloaked in the language of myth and magic, but the core narrative is remarkably consistent. What if we are not listening to fairy tales but to fragmented history? What if these legends are the human echo of a real event, a desperate attempt by survivors to preserve the memory of the world that was? The gods with their impossible powers could be a primitive understanding of a technology that seemed like magic. The Great Flood could be the folk memory of the rapid sea level rise at the end of the last ice age, an event that would have drowned coastal cities and low-lying continents worldwide. These stories provide the narrative soul to the skeletal evidence of the stones. The megalithic network we see scattered across the globe is the physical proof, the ruined infrastructure of this lost age. The myths are the story of its people, their achievements, and their tragic end. They are two halves of the same truth, one carved in stone, the other etched into the human psyche. Our ancestors were not just building monuments, they were building a warning, a testament to a greatness that was lost, and a plea for us to remember. The artifacts left behind are not confined to stone alone. Our evidence for a connected world extends to the very plants and people of antiquity. Take the humble sweet potato, a crop native to the Americas. For centuries, its presence in the remote islands of Polynesia, long before European contact, presented a historical riddle. How did this New World staple become a fundamental food source for Pacific Islanders thousands of miles away? The simplest answer is also the most profound. Ancient Polynesian voyagers, the greatest sailors the world has ever known, must have reached the shores of South America and returned with this vital cargo. This was not a one-way journey. The linguistic clues are startling. The Polynesian word for the sweet potato, kumara, is nearly identical to its name in the Quechua language of the Andes, where it was first domesticated. This is not a coincidence. It is the echo of a conversation that happened across an ocean. Even more startling evidence emerges from within the tombs of the pharaohs. Scientific analysis of ancient Egyptian mummies has repeatedly detected the presence of nicotine and cocaine, two substances derived from plants that were, according to our textbooks, exclusive to the Americas. How did these New World drugs find their way into the bodies of Egyptian nobility centuries before Columbus? The idea of independent, parallel development cannot explain this. It points directly to a transfer of goods, a transoceanic trade route that operated in the deep past. The blueprint for their voyages might be preserved in their boat designs. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay tablets and cylinder seals depict graceful, ocean-worthy vessels constructed from bundled reeds. Now look to the high Andes of Bolivia, to the vast expanse of Lake Titicaca. To this day, the local Yoruba people build and sail remarkably similar boats, also made from bundled totora reeds, with the same distinctive upturned prow. This is not just a shared idea. It is a shared maritime technology, a specific and effective solution for navigating large bodies of water that appears in two worlds that were supposedly apart. If these ancient cultures possessed the shipbuilding skill to cross oceans, then the global distribution of megalithic knowledge is no longer a mystery. It becomes the expected outcome. Their ships were their moving cities, carrying not just traders and explorers, but also architects, astronomers, and master masons. The same celestial knowledge they used to align their stone circles and pyramids would have been their navigational chart, guiding them across the featureless sea by the steady rotation of the stars. The oceans were not impassable barriers. They were the ancient world's information superhighways, flowing with ideas as readily as with currents, connecting continents into a single, vibrant, and unimaginably ancient network. The ground beneath our feet holds the final chapter of this story. Our planet itself bears the scars of a catastrophic event that could explain the disappearance of a global civilization. Around 12,000 years ago, the world was emerging from the last ice age. Vast ice sheets miles thick were melting, and sea levels were rising at a rate that would be terrifying to witness today. This was not a gentle, gradual change. Geological evidence points to periods of abrupt, violent climatic shifts, with global temperatures plummeting and then soaring again in the span of a single human lifetime. This era, known as the Younger Dryas, presents a profound mystery. One compelling theory, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, suggests a possible culprit. What if a fragmented comet or asteroid struck the ice sheet covering North America? The resulting firestorm and the sudden infusion of meltwater into the oceans would have been a planet-killing event. It could have shut down the global ocean currents that regulate our climate, plunging the world back into a mini ice age for over 1,000 years. It would have triggered superstorms of unimaginable fury and sent colossal tidal waves racing across the globe, scouring coastlines and flooding low-lying continents. Now consider the civilization we have been tracing. Its greatest achievements, its coastal cities and maritime trading ports, would have been on the front lines of this apocalypse. A society connected by sea would have seen its very lifeblood become its executioner. The survivors of such a global trauma would have been scattered, isolated groups, clinging to life in a world turned upside down. They would have carried with them fragments of the old knowledge, the stories of the gods and the Great Flood, and the dimly remembered skills of their ancestors. These survivor groups, over generations, would become the founders of the ancient cultures we know from history: the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the pre-Incan peoples, each one preserving a broken piece of the original blueprint. This is why the megalithic sites feel both impossibly advanced and strangely disconnected. They were not the first steps of a budding civilization. They were the last enduring monuments of a sophisticated world that was shattered. Built from the most durable materials and engineered to withstand millennia, these stone networks were the only things left standing after the waters receded and the dust settled. Their original purpose, their place in a global system of communication, energy, or navigation, was lost in the chaos. They became sacred sites for new cultures who revered them but no longer understood the science behind their construction. The silent stones were all that remained of a united world, a world that was reshaped by geological violence and then forgotten, leaving only echoes in our myths and these colossal puzzles for us to solve. These ancient stones were built not just to be seen but to be heard. A profound and often overlooked dimension of the megalithic network is its acoustic properties, a science of sound that seems to have been encoded into the very rock. Deep beneath the island of Malta lies the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, an underground labyrinth carved from solid limestone. Within its so-called oracle chamber, a deep male voice spoken into a specific niche creates a powerful, resonant vibration that echoes throughout the entire complex, a sensation that is felt in the bones as much as it is heard with the ears. This is not a random echo, it is a designed acoustic phenomenon. thousands of miles away inside the heart of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the so-called King's Chamber, built from massive granite blocks, possesses its own unique sonic signature. When specific frequencies are generated within this confined space, they create a standing wave, a resonant hum that amplifies the sound in a way that feels otherworldly. Modern experiments using tone generators have revealed something astonishing. These specific frequencies, often within the range of human chanting or the hum of a tuning fork, can directly influence brain activity. They can guide the brain into theta and delta wave states, the same patterns associated with deep meditation, lucid dreaming, and heightened states of awareness. This is not mystical speculation. It is a measurable physical effect of sound vibration on human biology. The question then becomes unavoidable: was this intentional? Did the builders of these sites possess a sophisticated understanding of vibrational science, using architecture as a tool to shape consciousness itself? The global recurrence of this principle suggests a unified answer. From the chanting chambers of ancient Ireland to the resonating stone circles of the Americas, we find the same acoustic blueprint. These structures were not passive temples. They may have been active devices, sophisticated machines built from stone and tuned to specific frequencies to facilitate spiritual journeys, healing, or perhaps even forms of communication we can no longer conceive. The stones were not silent. They were designed to sing, and their song was meant to transform the mind and spirit of the listener, connecting humanity to a deeper resonance within the earth and the cosmos. These ancient pathways might still be traced across the globe. The concept of ley lines proposes an invisible grid of energy flowing across the earth, a network of straight alignments connecting ancient sacred sites and prominent natural landmarks. Imagine the planet crisscrossed with lines of force, much like the meridians of acupuncture on the human body. Proponents of this idea argue that our ancestors could perceive these subtle telluric currents, the Earth's own vibrational pulse. They did not build their monuments at random. They constructed them with deliberate precision at powerful nodal points, at the intersections where these energetic pathways converged. A site like Stonehenge, for instance, does not stand alone. It forms a precise alignment with the nearby Glastonbury Tor and the Avebury Stone Circle, creating a straight track across the English countryside. This same pattern repeats worldwide. The Great Pyramid of Giza sits at the center of the Earth's landmass, a geometric nexus point. The temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia are arranged in a mirror of the Draco constellation. The sacred mountains of Peru and the ancient mounds of North America all seem to fall into this grand geometric design. If true, this transforms our understanding of the megalithic network. These structures were not just temples or tombs, they were sophisticated machines. Their placement and unique architecture, including the resonant chambers we just explored, suggest they were designed to interact with this planetary grid. They may have acted as amplifiers, capacitors, or transformers for the Earth's natural energy. What could this power have been used for? Perhaps it facilitated long-distance communication, a form of vibrational information transfer across continents. It might have been harnessed for healing, creating zones where the Earth's energy could promote well-being and spiritual awakening. Or, more speculatively, it could have been a source of clean, ambient power for a technology we can scarcely imagine. While mainstream science remains skeptical, as these energies are difficult to measure with our current instruments, the consistent, non-random placement of these sites is a riddle that demands an explanation. The ley line hypothesis frames the entire megalithic world as a single, integrated system, a planet-scale technological infrastructure that treated the Earth itself as a living, breathing entity. We are left to wonder if our ancestors were not merely building on the land, but were actively plugging into a cosmic circuit, using a science of energy we are only now beginning to rediscover. The evidence for this lost world is overwhelming, yet it remains a story whispered at the edges of academia. A powerful inertia holds our official history in place, a resistance rooted deep within the structure of the institutions tasked with uncovering our past. For many established archaeologists and historians, the current model of human progress is not just a theory, it is the foundation of their life's work. This model tells a linear story, one where civilizations like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley developed in splendid isolation, inventing agriculture, writing, and monumental architecture independently. To suggest that a sophisticated, seafaring culture predated them all, connecting these lands in a global network, is to pull the foundational pillar out from under the entire temple of modern anthropology. It would mean admitting that a central chapter of the human story is missing, forcing a complete and humbling rewrite of every textbook. The professional stakes for this are immense. A young researcher who seriously champions these ideas can find their career stalled before it even begins, their papers rejected by mainstream journals and their funding applications denied. This creates a silent, systemic filter. Anomalous discoveries, from the precise machining on stones at Puma, Punku to the transoceanic plant evidence, are often dismissed as curiosities, hoaxes, or simply misunderstood natural formations. The goalposts for proof are constantly moved, requiring a standard of evidence that is nearly impossible to meet for a civilization that was wiped out by a cataclysm thousands of years ago. The result is that the true story of our past is buried not under layers of sand, but under layers of dogma. We are left with a fragmented puzzle where the most compelling pieces are systematically excluded from the official picture, leaving us with a history that feels safe, familiar, and tragically incomplete. A technological revolution is now peeling back the layers of time. Light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, is a tool that fires millions of laser pulses from an aircraft down through dense vegetation, mapping the ground surface with stunning accuracy. The results have been nothing short of earth-shattering. In the jungles of Cambodia, what was once thought to be a scattered collection of temples around Angkor Wat has been revealed as a vast, low-density urban sprawl, a megacity with complex water management systems and roads connecting it to other centers. Similarly, in the impenetrable rainforests of Guatemala, LiDAR has exposed a sprawling Mayan civilization of unprecedented scale, with tens of thousands of previously unknown structures, causeways, and fortifications. These are not small villages. They are the bones of interconnected societies on a scale that rewrites our understanding of their population and organizational power. This is not limited to Central America. From the heart of the Amazon to the deepest Congo basin, the same technology is revealing extensive earthworks and geometric patterns carved into the landscape, hidden for centuries under a green canopy. At the same time, satellite archaeology is scanning the world's most arid and remote regions. In the Sahara Desert, satellite imagery has identified hundreds of potential stone structures and tombs, some aligned with celestial events, waiting for ground confirmation. These tools are giving us a God's eye view of our own planet, allowing us to see the grand, continental-scale patterns that were invisible to explorers on the ground. We are no longer just studying individual sites, we are mapping a network. The emerging picture is one of a planet dramatically and intentionally reshaped by human hands, a world crisscrossed with roads, canals, and ceremonial centers that follow a logical, interconnected layout. This is the hard data, the tangible evidence that can no longer be dismissed as speculation. Each new LiDAR scan and satellite survey chips away at the old paradigm of isolated cultures, revealing the faint but undeniable blueprint of a global civilization. The stones were the first clue, but this technology is providing the map. The stones themselves are a form of frozen mathematics. When we look beyond their colossal scale, we find their true genius lies in the invisible numbers woven into their design, a codex of cosmic principles rendered in granite and limestone. The Great Pyramid of Giza is perhaps the ultimate example. Its base perimeter, when divided by its height, gives a value that is essentially 2 times pi, a fundamental constant of geometry. This is not an approximation. It is a precise, intentional ratio, a mathematical signature built into millions of tons of stone. Even more astonishingly, the pyramid's dimensions appear to encode the circumference of our planet. The relationship between its height and the perimeter of its base creates a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere, with the pyramid itself representing a 1 to 43,200 ratio of the Earth's polar radius. This is not primitive monument building. This is geodesy, the science of measuring the Earth, executed with a precision that should not have existed in that era. Now shift your gaze to the windswept plains of Salisbury to Stonehenge. For generations, it was seen as a rough celestial calendar, but a deeper analysis reveals a far more complex geometric mind at work. The arrangement of its stones, the diameters of its concentric circles, and the angles between its key features all relate to a sophisticated understanding of Pythagorean triangles and other advanced geometric forms. The site can be used to predict not just solstices but lunar cycles and even eclipses. It functions as a massive, open-air astronomical computer, its calculations set in stone. This mathematical language is not confined to 1 or 2 famous sites. It is a global dialect. We find the golden ratio, a unique proportion revered for its aesthetic harmony, governing the layout of temples from Greece to Guatemala. The Fibonacci sequence, a numerical pattern found throughout nature in the spirals of sunflowers and nautilus shells, is echoed in the dimensions of ancient mounds and the floor plans of megalithic tombs. This is not a coincidence. It is the consistent application of a sacred geometry, a system that viewed mathematics as the divine language of creation. The builders were not merely stacking rocks. They were scientist-philosophers, embedding their understanding of the universe's fundamental laws into permanent terrestrial monuments. How could this complex, standardized system of knowledge appear so uniformly across continents and cultures? The simplest answer is that it was not invented multiple times. It was inherited from a single, primordial source, a civilization that had mapped the mathematics of reality and left its equations in stone for us to one day decipher. Our very blood contains a map of these forgotten journeys. The story of our past is not just carved in stone, it is encoded within our own genetic blueprint, and modern science is finally learning to read it. Genetic studies of ancient human remains are adding a profound new layer to this puzzle, revealing complex and previously unknown patterns of migration and contact that challenge the simplest versions of our history. One of the most startling discoveries involves the indigenous peoples of South America. Deep within the DNA of some ancient skeletons and modern populations, researchers have found distinct genetic markers that are most closely related to groups from Australasia, from the distant regions of Australia and Melanesia. This is a connection that the standard story of the Bering Land Bridge, a single migration from Siberia, cannot easily explain. It suggests a much more intricate peopling of the Americas, one that possibly involved voyagers crossing the vast Pacific Ocean long before any written record. Now, this genetic evidence is not a direct smoking gun for a single global megalithic civilization. It does not name the architects of Puma Punku or identify the sailors who built the Yonaguni Monument. But what it does is arguably more important. It proves that prehistoric human populations were far more mobile, adventurous, and interconnected than our textbooks ever allowed. It shatters the illusion of total isolation. If small bands of people using technology we would consider primitive could traverse the globe's most formidable oceans, then the movement of ideas was inevitable. A revolutionary technique for fitting stone, a precise method for tracking the stars, a sacred symbol of a serpent or a spiral, these are not heavy cargo. They are intellectual seeds easily carried in the mind of a single traveler. They could be transferred from one culture to another around a campfire, adopted and adapted, and then expressed in local stone generations later. The genetic evidence provides the plausible mechanism for the global spread of this advanced knowledge. The stones standing silently on the landscape and the genes flowing silently in our veins are telling two parts of the same incredible story. They are a congruent narrative of a deeply connected ancient world. Our ancestors were not simple, isolated tribes. They were intrepid world travelers, and their legacy is a dual inheritance, written eternally in both our DNA and the impossible monuments they left behind for us to find. When all these threads are held together, they form a tapestry of impossible complexity. The identical stonework on different continents, the stars mirrored in sacred architecture, the same myths whispered in 1,000 languages, they are not random strands. They are the woven proof of a world that was once whole. This grand synthesis points toward a foundational civilization, a mother culture that flourished in the deep past. Its people were not primitive hunters, they were master navigators, cosmic cartographers, and engineers who treated 1,000-ton stones like children's blocks. Their world was not defined by the oceans that separate us, but connected by them. They used the seas as highways, guided by a universal understanding of the heavens, trading not only goods but the very blueprint for civilization itself. This network thrived in an age now lost to us, a golden epoch that may have spanned the globe at a time when sea levels were lower and now submerged lands were open for settlement. Then came the collapse, whether from a cosmic impact, a rapid shift in climate, or the relentless rise of the waters, the result was the same. A global cataclysm shattered this interconnected world, drowning its coastal cities and severing its trade routes. The survivors were scattered into isolated pockets, carrying with them only fragments of the old knowledge. These fragments became the seeds for the cultures we know from recorded history. The Egyptians, the Maya, the Inca, they were not the originators of this high science. They were the inheritors, building their own magnificent societies upon the indestructible foundations of their incomprehensibly advanced predecessors. They looked upon the Cyclopean walls and star-aligned temples left behind and could only explain them as the work of gods or giants. The original purpose of this global network, whether for energy, communication, or a spiritual technology we can scarcely grasp, was lost. All that remained were the silent, majestic stones, a global library written in a language of mathematics and astronomy, waiting millennia for us to finally begin reading its pages. The evidence laid before us is a profound challenge to the story we tell ourselves about who we are and where we come from. This is not a quest for a single lost city like Atlantis, a solitary ruin to be placed on a map. It is the pursuit of a lost age, a forgotten epoch where humanity was connected by a common thread of knowledge that spanned the globe. The mathematical precision of the pyramids, the transoceanic echoes in mythology, the impossible uniformity of polygonal masonry, these are not isolated curiosities. They are pieces of a single, shattered mosaic, a congruent narrative written in stone and star and blood. To see these clues as separate is to miss the grand design entirely. They form a pattern too numerous and too consistent to be dismissed as mere coincidence. This journey through the world's ancient stones is, above all, an invitation to humility. It asks us to question the linear narratives we have been taught and to consider a far more complex and wondrous human story. Our past is not a simple upward climb from primitivism. It appears to be a cycle of grandeur and amnesia, of a brilliant light that once shone across the world, only to be dimmed by a catastrophic reset. The mystery of this lost civilization is not yet solved, but the path forward is now clear. We must continue to explore with open minds, to question established dogma, and most importantly, to listen to the whispers of the stones. They have been waiting for millennia for us to finally understand their message. If this exploration has reshaped your view of the past, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to continue this journey with us into history's greatest enigmas.